You know, in cybersecurity, we're always told that what gets measured gets managed. But what if we're measuring all the wrong things? What if those numbers that look so good on a dashboard are totally disconnected from the actual chaos happening on the ground? Today, we're going to dive into that massive gap between the metrics the boardroom wants to see and the reality the security team is living with every single day. I mean, this is the fundamental problem, right? Business leaders, they need to quantify risk to make smart decisions, but cybersecurity threats, they're often invisible, right up until it's way too late. So how in the world do you put a number on something that hasn't even happened yet? And believe me, those questions are getting tougher. See, cybersecurity isn't just some IT problem you can tuck away in a server room anymore. Nope. It's a core business risk. It's a board-level priority. And a simple little green light, red light dashboard, that just doesn't cut it anymore. They want to understand the why behind all the numbers. So, let's start where the money is, the boardroom. This is the macro view, where security is seen through the lens of business impact. It's all about translating those super technical details into real strategic insights.
When you really boil it all down, executives are asking three really crucial questions. First, are we actually in danger? Like, for real? Second, when something bad does happen, how fast can we stop the bleeding? And third, probably the biggest one, is the millions of dollars we're pouring into security actually doing anything? These are the questions that are keeping CEOs up at night.
Okay, so to answer that how fast question, the industry loves to use what are called key performance indicators, or KPIs. The first big one is mean time to detect. This measures the gap between an attacker getting into your system and your team finally realizing they're there. And let me tell you, every single second that ticks by is another second for them to do some serious damage. You want this number as low as humanly possible.
And right after you've detected that threat, a whole new clock starts ticking on the next critical metric, mean time to respond. This is all about execution. It's the average time it takes your team to go from, uh-oh, we have a problem, to, okay, the problem is solved. A low MTTR, well, that reflects maturity. It shows you've got good playbooks and a team that knows exactly what to do when those alarm bells start ringing.
So here's how these really clean, tidy numbers get created. You just take the timestamps from a few different incidents, run them through a pretty simple formula, and poof, you get a neat little average. In this example here, it's 33 minutes to detect and 60 minutes to respond. And yeah, it looks great on a slide, but this clean math, it hides a really, really messy reality.
All right, now let's leave that quiet, orderly boardroom and head down into the trenches, the Security Operations Center, or the SOC. This is where all the raw data comes in. And trust me, it's not a gentle stream. It is a fire hose pointed right at you.
Now this quote, this isn't from some corporate white paper. This is the raw, unfiltered truth from a real analyst on Reddit. And it just perfectly captures the burnout and the soul-crushing repetition of chasing ghosts in an endless queue of tickets. This is the human cost of that data fire hose. So, just how bad is the noise? Well, this number is absolutely staggering. According to Strobe Security, a typical alert fatigue ratio can be as high as 73%. Let that sink in. That means nearly 3 out of every 4 security alerts are either ignored or just never resolved. Think about that. The vast majority of signals are just noise. And this leads to a really dangerous condition called alert fatigue. It's a real psychological state where analysts, who are just bombarded by false alarms day in and day out, they become numb to it all. They start to tune out the warnings. And that is exactly when a real critical threat slips right through the cracks. The very system designed to protect you is now actively working against you. So, how do we fix this, right? How do we find that tiny little signal in all of that noise? Well, the first approach is a disciplined, human-driven process. It's all about systematically tuning your detection rules to quiet down all that meaningless chatter and amplify the real threats. And there's a real method to this madness. First, you got to collect the data to see what's actually eating up your team's time. Second, you visualize it. You chart it out to find the patterns. Third, and this is a big one, you have to ask hard questions about each alert rule, like, has this thing ever been useful? Finally, you turn those decisions into a repeatable system so you're not stuck fighting the same fires over and over again every quarter.
So here's how you prioritize all this stuff. The alerts that are actually effective at finding threats, those are your winners. For these, you tune the process to make investigations faster. But the alerts that just waste time and find absolutely nothing, those are your losers. And with those, you have to be aggressive. You either tune them or you just turn them off.
Now, this human-led tuning is super powerful. But let's be honest, it's also incredibly time-consuming. To truly scale, we need to bring in the machines. And this is where AI and machine learning come into the picture. Not to replace analysts, but to act as these incredibly powerful assistants.
A perfect example of this is a framework from a recent research paper and has a great name, that escalated quickly, or TEQ for short. It uses machine learning to analyze all the incoming alerts and then predict which ones actually require a human to take action. It automatically learns the patterns of all those false positives and just bubbles up the stuff that truly matters. So this slide really shows you the two sides of the solution. The human approach that brings deep context and intuition. The AI approach provides incredible scale. The real magic happens when you combine them. You use the AI for all the heavy lifting, and then you use the humans for those final nuanced decisions.
And these results, they are not theoretical. In a real-world simulation, the TEQ framework was able to suppress over half of all false positives. And get this, it reduced the time it took to respond to real incidents by almost 23%. This isn't just about making the queue quieter. It's about making the entire security operation faster and way more effective.
Okay, so we've seen the chaos in the SOC, and we've looked at two really powerful ways to fix it. Now let's connect all this back to the boardroom, right where we started. How does fixing the noise on the ground actually help answer those big strategic questions?
Well, this is it. This is the core idea of this whole explainer. When you effectively tune alerts and prioritize what matters in the SOC, you're not just reducing burnout for your team. You are fundamentally cleaning the data that feeds into those high-level KPIs like MTTD and MTTR. The signal, it finally becomes trustworthy.
So, armed with this understanding, you can start asking way better questions. Instead of just accepting a KPI at face value, you can dig deeper. Are these numbers actually based on real risk, or are they just measuring busy work? What are the actual bottlenecks slowing us down? Are these metrics audit-proof? I mean, these are the questions that bridge that massive gap between the SOC and the C-suite.
And all of that leaves us with one final crucial question to think about. Is your security team just measuring how busy they are? How many tickets they close, how many alerts they generate? Or are they providing a true measure of how much business risk you are actually reducing? The answer to that question? Well, it changes everything.